It was a feverish year for the midshipmen of the Naval Academy in 1980, one which saw them overcome a host of obstacles. They made comeback after comeback during the season to showcase an 8-4 record and earned their second bowl invitation in the past 3 years. It was a Navy team whose defense was to wind up 6th best in the country, allowing just 10.1 points a game and giving up only 223 yards a game. The litany of contributors to this defensive prowess started with middle guards Tim Jordan and Terry Huxell, linebackers Ted Dumbold and Mike Kranzer, tackle Steve Chambers, and backs John Ross and Jeff Shoemake, but extended to a number of others whose spirited performances were most significant. The Navy offense was a question mark when the season began, yet it grew steadily in confidence with Fred Reitzel, number 26, a converted safety, deftly showing his athletic talent at quarterback. Balance to the midshipman attack was supplied by quick Eddie Myers, number 40, whose 957 yards during the season was the third best seasonal total ever by a mid-running back. Supporting Myers on the ground were senior Mike Sherlock, number 23, who joins Myers among the Academy's all-time career rushing leaders, and rugged fullback Kevin Tolbert, number 30, who enjoyed a reputation for his thundering blocks. And when Reitzel elected to go up top, he had solid targets in speedy tight end Kurt Gaynor, number 87, and wideouts Dave Dent, number 86, and Greg Papajohn, number 82. And there was the unheralded but effective offensive line, keyed by All-American Frank McAllister and center Mike Dolan, plus one of the best kicking games in Navy football history. Punter Lex Laletta was to finish with a 41.2 average, and place kicker Steve Fair shattered the Academy football record book with his placements. Perhaps more than anything was the quiet driving force behind this Navy squad, in the personage of Coach George Welsh. His intensity transcended to his players. The candid-speaking Welch said about this Navy team, "They overcame more to get where they ended up than any team I've ever had." In actuality, the season reflected the perseverance and determination that was to be the hallmark of Navy football in 1980. Welsh himself was hailed by his peers for the Mid's outstanding showing that resulted in an 8-3 regular season record and the bowl invitation. Navy was the host team in the Garden State Bowl at the New Jersey Meadowlands. Bowl game festivities included a Broadway show and tour of New York City. It was the 7th time a Navy football team had been selected for a postseason bowl appearance. The season opener at Virginia found the Navy defense ready to exhibit its stubborn characteristics. But the mid-offense was still trying to find itself, and the host Cavaliers were to hand Navy only its second opening day loss in the past 11 years by a slim 6-3 margin. Undaunted, Navy eagerly looked ahead to a 3-game homestand. First, the midshipmen greeted Kent State with some stinging defensive play. Before the afternoon ended, Navy was to force 6 turnovers, 4 of these interceptions by the young and rapidly improving mid-secondary. The turnovers resulted in touchdowns, like this run by the ever-dependable Sherlock, and another by junior Dwayne Flowers. Navy had a 31-3 triumph. William and Mary was the next invader to Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium, and the Indians found Reitzel had now really settled in at quarterback. The heady senior, Navy starting safety in 78 and 79, was to complete 13 of his 16 pass attempts for 206 yards and 3 touchdowns. Navy scored on 5 of its first 6 possessions, including 2 aerial strikes to Greg Papajohn and 1 to Kurt Gaynor. The Navy defense grudgingly gave up 174 yards as the Mids gained victory number 2, 45-6. A homecoming crowd was on hand when Navy prepared to battle a huge Boston College team that had been impressive in the early season. Spirit ran high, not only among the brigade of midshipmen, but the team itself was anxious to relieve the apprehension that had built up during the week. The Navy defense quickly took charge, with Dumbold and Jordan leading their mates on an assault that continually thwarted Eagle quarterback John Locker. BC was able to cross midfield only once all afternoon, and that was for only 2 plays. The Eagles were forced to punt a school record 12 times. In the meantime, the mid-offense came up with some timely plays, including a pair of perfectly designed traps that sprung hard-charging fullback Kevin Tolbert loose for 2 touchdown bursts. The combination of superb defensive play and ample offense provided Navy with a 21-0 triumph and a 3-1 record. The Mids had allowed only 15 points in those first 4 games. Back on the road, Navy traveled to meet Service Academy rival Air Force. The spirited Falcons were to take the early lead as quarterback Scott Schaefer pranced in from 10 yards out. The Mids fought back with a 34-yard field goal by Fair and an 11-yard touchdown scamper by Myers. In the end, an Air Force pass with just 1 minute 2 seconds left gave the Falcons a 21-20 win. Back on the home field for the last time in 1980, Navy, with an offensive line rebuilt because of injuries, was to meet Villanova. The Mids struck for 24 quick points in the second period. Papajohn took a 15-yard pass from Reitzel, and Reitzel followed with a 4-yard run. Tolbert blasted up the middle 20 yards for a touchdown. And following a pass interception by Jeff Shoemake, Fair hit on a 49-yard field goal on the last play of the first half. In the second half, Navy's defense reasserted itself to ensure a 24-15 mid-win. 18th ranked Washington and a near national television audience were next on the Navy schedule, and the midshipmen were ready. Mike Kronzer forced an early Husky fumble, which Chambers grabbed, and 8 plays later, the alert Reitzel back to pass saw enough daylight to weave his way for an early score. The Navy defense seemed to be everywhere that afternoon. Shoemake with an interception stopped a Washington drive. Jordan made one of his patented sacks. And academic All-American Dumbull delivered a solid tackle. Reitzel scored another touchdown in the third period and then fired a 25-yard pass to the diving Dent to keep a drive alive in the fourth period. When Myers, looking to the goal line, lost the ball, the ever-present Reitzel fell on it for a Navy touchdown, his third of the game. Navy's defense was to make one more stellar play. A fumble recovery by tackle Chris Garner on the mid-3 with 6:19 remaining. Navy then made a long drive to chew up most of the remaining time. The 24-10 triumph over the Pac-10 champions was one of the most prestigious for the Midshipmen in recent years. After a 33-0 loss to top-ranked Notre Dame, Navy made its first appearance in Syracuse's new Carrier Dome. Its defense restructured because of injuries, Navy still was to stop Orange career rushing leader Joe Morris. A 31-yard fair field goal pulled the Mids even at halftime, 3-3. Then Tom Tarquinio, a sophomore quarterback, positioned the Mids for another fair field goal of 30 yards early in the final period. But a 6-3 lead is at best precarious, and it took an interception by steady halfback John Ross to give the ball back to the Midshipmen. Tarquinio then took Navy on a 13-play march that consumed the final 6 minutes 32 seconds and ended inches from the goal line. Navy was a 6-3 victor. There was some anxiety on the part of the Midshipmen as they invaded Georgia Tech's Grant Field, for they had not won there in 6 previous tries, and the Engineers were coming off a 3-3 tie with Notre Dame. Navy, however, was to put on a balanced performance that day. Eddie Myers dashed around left end from 19 yards out for a first period mid-score, and then the defense once again did its thing. It kept Tech from crossing midfield until 5 minutes into the final period. In the meantime, the Navy offensive controls had been turned over again to the poised Tarquinio, who set up 4 field goals by fair. Those 4 3-pointers tied a school record. The 19-8 victory was Navy's 7th of the season against 3 losses. And after the game, Navy accepted a bid to play in the 3rd annual Garden State Bowl, its 2nd bowl trip in 3 years. A new site, Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia, welcomed the Army-Navy rivalry, but the pregame pageantry in anticipation of the Brigade of Midshipmen and Corps of Cadets remained at its usual fever pitch. Also was the first opportunity for the Mids to go ahead in this series since 1921. Navy literally exploded from the locker room and exploded onto the scoreboard as well. The sure-footed Fair first kicked a 50-yard field goal that was an Army-Navy game as well as Academy record. Moments later, Travis Wallington scooped up an Army fumble. Reitzel turned this opportunity into a touchdown run and a 10-0 Navy lead. started the second quarter scoring with a 38-yard field goal. Then Reitzel opened up the mid-attack with a pair of passes, one for 16 yards to Dent, who was to make 6 catches that evening, and one for 15 yards to Gaynor. The mid-quarterback scooted in from the 4 for a 20-0 halftime Navy lead. A third fair field goal, this one for 34 yards, preceded Army's only score of the game, a 26-yard run by halfback Gerald Walker. Navy countered with the Reitzel to Dent aerial wizardry. The duo teamed up for 3 receptions and a 63-yard drive with a final toss, a 9-yard touchdown. Fair's 4th field goal set an Army-Navy game record for most points by a kicker, and he ended up with 4 Navy season and game records. The mid-defense was equally proficient, stifling the cadets to a mere 144 yards total offense, and holding starting cadet quarterback Gerald Bennett to 7 completions in 22 attempts. Navy's 33-6 triumph was the 7th in Welch's 8 years as the midshipman coach, and Navy retained the Commander-in-Chief's trophy for the 3rd straight year. It was a fitting climax for a team whose perseverance was tested time and again in 1980, but a team whose resiliency will long be remembered.